Hello everybody, this is Ryan over at High Carb Generator. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, like, subscribe. Somebody asked me to watch this video. I've seen this dude before. I'm not even sure who this is. Maybe that's Stephen Gundry. I don't know. Let's get into this.
10,000 years ago, we switched over to things that we had never eaten before. And those were the grains of grasses and beans. Now, the reason we'd never eaten them before is, number one, we didn't need to. There's never been a documentation of an ape eating grass or grains. Beans are so lethal that 5 raw kidney beans will kill a human being in 5 minutes by coagulating their blood.
Is that true? I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean... I don't know anybody who does it, but I know people who sprout this stuff and they're still alive. I don't know who this is.
With you and me and what we conceive of our bodies, but it turns out that 90% of all the cells that make you and me are actually non-human cells.
This is a really good book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
They're bacteria, viruses, funguses, worms that live in us and on us.
Wow.
And the shocking thing is that 99% of all the genes that make up you and me are non-human genes.
What are they?
They're bacterial and viral genes. And what we've completely missed from the human genome...
I feel like I'm watching two pilots here. I don't know. I feel like they should be flying a plane. They're facing the wrong direction, though.
Genome Project is that we have actually very few genes, and our genes are about 99% the same as a chimp or a gorilla. And we're very different than chimps or gorillas, and yet we have virtually the same genes. What makes us different is actually the bacteria and viruses that live in us.
We have different bacteria and viruses.
And you can actually show when humans evolved from the other great apes that our bacteria actually changed, and we can actually identify that point in time.
So maybe this is about the microbiome? I don't know.
That the bacteria made us rather than our genes made us.
So the bacteria's made us human, or bacteria made us...
Yeah, they actually, as shocking as it may seem, most of what happens to us is determined by the state and the variation of our bacteria, primarily in our gut. Give you an example. You can take...
This is starting to sound like that one book that I reviewed. Man, what's the name of it? I forget what the name. I'll think about the name of it.
A bowel movement from an obese individual and feed it to a skinny rat. Skinny rats love to eat poop.
Right.
And those skinny rats will become fat.
Really?
Because the bacteria have actually manipulated their feeding habits.
That's going to drive me nuts. What is the name of that book? I gotta. Oh, Fiber Fueled. That's the name of the book. Fiber Fueled by Will. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Looks like a Polish name to me.
They actually send text messages to the brain to go look for foods that they would not otherwise consume that those bacteria want. And we can actually, there was a cool study in a marathon runner. You're a great athlete. So there's a woman marathon runner in England a couple of years ago who developed a very...
Yeah, I know Cleveland Clinic is actually working on doing this now. I think they're in a trial, or you can sign up to be part of the trial. I don't know the exact specifics.
Very severe.
Where they take fecal matter from a skinny person and they put it in fat people, and it's like this miracle, you know, like you're not fat anymore.
Infection in their colon called C. difficile. A lot of people have heard of it. Okay. And the modern treatment of this now is a fecal transplant. taking poop from somebody else and shoving it up your ass.
Wow.
And you try to get a fecal transplant from a family member because, believe it or not, family members tend to share their bacteria. I share a lot of bacteria with my dogs, and they share with me. So they found a cousin who was a good match for her, and she got the fecal transplant, and everything went well. Her C. difficile went away. We can go into why that happened. But in the next year, this marathon runner gained 32 pounds.
Wow.
Without changing anything. And it turns out her cousin, was actually about 32 pounds overweight. And so,
That's insane.
so she was inoculated with obesogenic bacteria. And her bacteria, these little, one-cell organisms, controlled her behavior.
Wow.
Now, think about this.
So it made her more hungry or desirable of certain foods.
Yeah, exactly.
So she changed the way she was eating because she was triggered in a
Being
different way.
manipulated.
Wow.
Being manipulated.
Well, it's kind of like when you're, I love candy and sweets. I've never been drunk and I don't drink, but my vice is like I could eat cakes and candy and brownies all day long.
See, but that's highly fatty. So everybody calls that sweet. And I guess, yeah, there's sugar in it, but there's more fat in that than there is sugar.
If I choose to. And then when I go off of it, it's hard because I just want to keep going back to it, right?
Yeah.
Until I change the habit fully, and then I'm like, I don't need it anymore.
Right.
But it takes that time to kind of transition out of it, right?
Yeah.
I have this book too, that huge Schwarzenegger book, but unfortunately it got damaged in a.
These are very addictive foods, and they're addictive because what happens is, like, simple sugars, like in candies and cakes, and saturated fats, like on the icing and the coating on the donut and all.
Oh, it's so good.
Used to love them. And so these things, actually, the obesogenic bacteria can actually live on them. They love it. They love simple sugars. They love saturated fats. And they go, yeah, give me more. And they actually tell our brain to do that. It's kind of like, you remember the movie Little Shop of Horrors with the blood-sucking plant? It was a very famous Broadway show. Sure. So Rick Moranis starred in the movie, and there's this blood-sucking plant that he grows in the Audrey and
all right, let's
experiment where they gave them all colonics and cleaned out their colons, and then they gave them fecal enemas from happy people.
No way.
And about 2/3 of the depressed people got happy and were released.
I can see that.
In the 1930s.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's just, you start looking at this and go, whoa, we're probably looking at the wrong stuff. For instance, one of the things that I'm talking about in Berlin in October at the World Congress of Microbiota, that's what this study is.
Fiber field. It reminds me of a situation. I think it was in the Netherlands. I've actually covered it on a video of mine, but there's so many of them I couldn't figure out which one it was. I think it was in the Netherlands in World War II. They didn't have anything but potatoes, and they became extremely healthy. They were so healthy, matter of fact, that the Nazi-occupied Germans started getting irritated because they were getting fatter and fatter and fatter, because they were just taking everybody's, cows and all that, and they were eating all the beef and everything. And they just kept getting more and more unhealthy. And then the Netherlands, eating just nothing but potatoes, kept getting healthier and healthier and healthy, and they couldn't figure it out.
We now know that you can take bacteria from young animals' guts and put them in old animals' guts, and the old animals will become young again.
No way. You mean like
it's the fountain of youth?
No way. So they'll their cells will get younger?
Yes.
Or they'll have youthful energy or what?
All of the above. They will actually extend their lifespan by about 30%.
What?
Yeah, because here's the deal. What I'm trying to get people to understand is this is not about you and me or what we conceive as us. We're just a condominium for the people who really run us, and these are all these little one-cellular organisms. And what we're beginning to realize is we're a condominium for these bugs. And we're their home. We've exchanged them living in us and actually taking care of us for food and shelter for them.
Huh.
And
That's crazy.
I know. And the really cool thing is, so we can take bacteria from young animals, and put them into old animals. And the bacteria say, man, engulfed bacteria. Yes, by looking at our skin, who's the old person and who's the young person.
Wow.
And I was showing this picture to David Sinclair from Harvard, who's one of the great anti-aging researchers in this country and actually in the world. And we were discussing some ways to manipulate mitochondria in the brain. And I said, let me show you a picture. And he's looking and he says, okay, so Mehmet's a lot older than you, right? And he said, let me show you my driver's license. He said, wait a minute, how old are you?
Right.
And he said, can I have this picture? And I said, yeah. He says, I'm going to put it in all my talks.
Wow.
Because what I've been doing for the last 17 years is giving my bacteria what all the research that I've done and many other people have done would predict that my bacteria are pretty doggone happy with what I'm doing for them.
Wow.
And they're exchanging that happiness to say, man, this is a great place to live, and we're going to keep this place
nice and clean.
and just happy.
Yeah.
And so,
wow.
Yeah.
And so you lived in a blue zone, is that right? In Loma Linda?
Yeah, Loma Linda is a blue zone. That's correct.
So,
but when I was living in that blue zone, I was eating a low-fat vegetarian diet. I was running 30 miles a week. I was one of these Clydesdale runners. I weighed 70 pounds more than I do now.
Really?
Yeah, I was a Clydesdale.
There's a lot of unhealthy people in blue zones, too.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the vegans that just are overweight, and you're like, how are you
Uh-oh. Here we go.
this overweight?
Yeah, well, it actually is because you're giving your bacteria the wrong stuff. And that's really part of the plant paradox. The plant paradox is that there's certain plants that absolutely positively do not want us to eat them
at all, in any circumstance.
Under any
Whether
circumstance.
you cook them or chop them or slice them or skin them, doesn't matter.
They were here first, and they had it really great before animals arrived because nobody wanted to eat them. And my research at Yale was in human evolutionary biology, so plants have the same evolutionary drive as animals. They want to grow, and they want to have babies, seeds.
They want to protect themselves.
And they want to protect themselves.
They don't want to die.
Exactly.
Right.
So when animals arrived, they had a problem because animals can run, they can hide, they can fight, but plants are
This is actually more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I just hope they don't hit me up with a copyright.
stuck. But plants are chemists of incredible ability. So they can turn sunlight into matter, like around your wall here.
Wow.
And so what they use is chemical warfare to actually
defend themselves,
and to even make animals do.
You know, it's weird because Bunker Life has talked about this too.
Their bidding. Because, for instance, just throw it.
For those who don't know who Bunker Life is, it's Freely's. That's what I call her now because she calls everything Bunker Life that isn't fruits.
An example, most plants want you to eat their fruits because the fruit contains seed to go reseed them.
Yeah.
So you'll eat their fruit. The seeds in the fruits are inedible, and you'll either spit them out, or if you swallow them, they'll survive going through your intestines, and you'll poop them out someplace else.
Fertilized.
And fertilized. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And they're away from mom and dad. So, for instance, if an apple, falls underneath the apple tree, that poor kid doesn't have much of a chance because mom or dad is going to shade them the next year. But if it gets carried off, even 100 feet away, and then it gets dropped, the plant does this on purpose.
Crazy.
And in fact, you and I love fruit because you and I were designed to eat fruit once a year in the summer to gain weight for the winter. So it was a really good trade-off between, for instance, great apes and plant.
To gain weight, huh? I mean, most people who eat nothing but fruit lose weight.
But the fascinating thing is manufacturers, food chemists know this, and
And what if you live in the tropics like we're supposed to? You'd have fruit year-round.
We are drawn with color vision, and only animals that are fruit predators actually have color vision, because you want to know when the fruit is ripe, when it has the highest sugar content.
Right.
And the plant wants you to know when it's ripe, because that's when the seed finally has an impenetrable shell. And it doesn't want you to eat it before that time. So it tells you, okay, now's the time.
Shiniest object, it's time to eat it.
Yeah. So what colors does it use? In general, it uses reds and oranges and yellows to denote ripeness. So the next time you're going down the snack aisles looking for all the great munchy stuff, you'll be shocked that most of the companies use...
I mean, you can, that one, just thinking about going down the chip aisle, everybody uses the exact same colors.
Oranges, reds, yellows to get your attention.
Except for when you see blue bags, I'm like, that just doesn't even make sense.
Because it goes direct into the deep center of your brain and says, ooh, that color means I should eat it. I'm going to get a lot of calories, and I'm going to be the big winner for the winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that every day
Big
for many years
mistake.
in a row,
yes,
you're always storing fat for the winter.
That's exactly right. And that's part of the plant paradox.
Yeah.
Now, that goes completely against what that doctor that I covered about the, I can't think of anything, about the vitamin D. He said that the more vitamin D you have, the more you lose, because vitamin D signals the body to go into hibernation mode if you don't have a lot.
Yeah.
Is that once upon a time, we only had fruit in a very limited time period.
Now we have it accessible all the time.
There were no 747s bringing blueberries to Costco in February. They just weren't. So one of the weird things about our computer program is, like Tony Robbins is always fun to say, we run version 1.0 of our operating system. We've never had an upgrade. And the same goes to the foods and the plants and the fruit we eat. So we were supposed to eat fruit once a year. And when we were eating fruit,
But that doesn't make sense. If you live in the tropics, that's all you'd have to eat.
our brain says, oh my gosh, it's summer. Winter is right around the corner. We should eat this stuff because winter's a tough time, whether it's dry season, a rainy season, a cold season. And we better store up fat. Just like a bear. Bear's eating all those blueberries and huckleberries, and they're...
Yeah, but I mean, it's also eating all the salmon and everything else that's going to make you fat.
Storing fat for the winter. Right. So if you're eating blueberries at Costco in February that came from Chile, your operating system doesn't know it's February. It says, heck, it's August, and winter's right around the corner, so I better eat some more of this stuff. And this is one of the things that's happening to us in particularly American society, but now most of the Western countries.
Yeah.
We're eating things that we have no business eating 365 days a year. And most of us are just getting ready for the winter that never comes.
Especially if you live in L.A.
Yeah.
It's never getting cold.
Yeah, never comes.
You don't need to store that fat.
You really don't. Yeah, but that's part of the problem.
Wow. So, what are the main plants that we should never be eating then?
Okay, real quick.
I think I'm going to call it after this.
Up until 10,000 years ago, we lived primarily on the leaves of trees, and we ate tubers that grew in the ground, like a sweet potato for a yam.
Love those.
Yeah, they're actually they're pretty darn good for you. You were actually designed to eat them. And
very good.
12,000 years ago...
I'd like to get him on with Doug Graham. And see them duke it out.
10,000 years ago, we switched over to things that we had never eaten before. And those were the grains of grasses and beans. Now, the reason...
Technically, bananas are a grass, so does it mean you can eat bananas?
We'd never eaten them before is, number one, we didn't need to. There's never been a documentation of an ape eating grass or...
Bananas.
Grains. Beans are so lethal that 5 raw kidney beans will kill a human being in 5 minutes by coagulating their blood.
What?
5 raw kidney beans.
Raw kidney beans.
In fact, most people have heard of the poison ricin the white powder you send to your elected official.
Yeah.
Lots on the way to Washington,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
another subject. So ricin is the lectin of the castor bean, and we'll talk about lectins next. A lectin is the plant defense system. These are proteins that are designed
It's kind of funny because lectins are in a lot of processed food.
to basically kill us in one way or another.
Gosh.
And so ricin is so powerful that about 4 molecules of ricin will kill a human being instantaneously. There's a great study that was written up in one of the journals about a few years ago. They decided to have a healthy eating day in Boston.
Yeah.
And they served the kids beans. And because it's so healthy.
Right.
Part of the blue zone.
Yes.
And they had...
I've seen this ricin on labels before, isn't it? Ideas. Is that how you spell it? Plural for rici. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
30 or 40 admissions to the hospital.
No way.
With severe diarrhea, hypotension, and it turns
This guy really seems kind of fake to me. But who am I?
out that it was all the fact that the beans were undercooked. And beans are a plant baby, and we're not supposed to eat those. And so
No beans.
no beans.
0 beans.
Unless you use
Pinto
a pressure.
black
Yeah,
beans.
Pinto black.
None of it. We shouldn't be eating it.
Shouldn't be in it. You weren't designed to eat it. You have no defense
no
system
matter how it's
against
cooked,
it. If you pressure
boiled.
cook it, it's fine.
Pressure cook it. What does that even mean?
Put it in a pressure cooker.
Pressure
the
cooker.
modern pressure cooker is as easy as a rice cooker.
Got it.
It's one touch. It's not your grandmother's
Instant Pot.
pressure
Got it.
cooker that blew up in the kitchen. And
So then it's okay to eat.
yeah, so you can pressure cook beans. Now, the other thing, we weren't designed to eat grains.
Now,
And
just a quick question before you start there. How much of it can we eat? Doesn't matter once it's pressure cooked?
here-
Obviously, everything in moderation, but I mean,
yeah, well, like I was
it's
presenting.
like 20 beans are going to kill me or what?
no,
what's
if you pressure cook them, they're fine.
It's all good. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And we talk about how to do this in the plant
Got it.
paradox.
Got it. Okay, cool.
But my personal feeling is the only purpose of eating a bean is to get olive oil into my mouth, and we can talk about that
What?
Got it.
as we go along.
Okay.
So grains, for instance, everybody heard about gluten.
Yes.
All right, so gluten is a lectin. And again, a lectin is a plant's defense system. It's a protein that actually is designed to act like incoming guided missile attacks
Wow.
on the inside wall of our gut. And these things actually pry open the lining of our gut and actually break through the border.
Really?
Yeah, they
Leaky gut.
really do. And
That's what causes eczema and
Bingo.
causes breakouts.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Acne,
All that
brain fog, irritable bowel. This is actually all part of that process.
Wow.
And so it's fascinating to see people who either have come to see me or have even read the book and then write on Amazon, oh my gosh, I had this horrible eczema and now a month later it's all gone and all I did was, take grains and beans and nightshades away from my diet and everything got better. So that brings us to the second
But nightshades can be tumors.
kind of group of things we shouldn't eat. All of us are not from the United States, America. We're actually from Europe, Asia, or Africa. Every one of us.
Yeah.
So, and even our Native Americans are actually not Native Americans. They're from Asia. Get over it.
Right. Right.
So none of us were exposed to an American plant until 500 years ago when Columbus started trade. So getting to know a new plant, a new lectin in 500 years is speed dating in evolution. I just don't think it can be done. For instance, the Italians refused to eat tomatoes for 200 years after their native son Columbus brought them back because they knew how dangerous they were. They were part of the deadly nightshade family.
Really?
And when they started eating them, they always peeled and de-seeded their tomatoes because the peels and the seeds actually have the vast majority of the lectins. And It's interesting. Years ago, I was did my fellowship in children's heart surgery in London, England, and I had a house officer from Italy, and he invited me up for pasta and tomato sauce.
Yes.
And so I brought, it'd be nice if I bought a couple cans of canned tomatoes, help out.
Sure.
And he looks at it, he says, "Why did you bring me this? We can't use this." So I said, "What do you mean? It's canned tomatoes." He says, "It's got peels and seeds. You can't make sauce with peels and seeds." He says, "Mamma mia, what am I going to do with you?" So,
I wonder if that's what they do in Sardinia or that island where the people live so long. They don't eat most of the tomato.
you can't use peels and seeds. And I said, "Why?" He says, "They're deadly." And I said, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah, everybody knows that." And then I thought back, as a child, my grandmother was French, and she taught my mother that you always peel and de-seed tomatoes before you slice them and serve them. So until I went to
What's left?
Yale, I had never had a slice of a tomato with a peel and a seed.
Wow.
And this was, this has come from cultures.
Yeah.
For instance, peppers. Peppers are the same way. They're part of the nightshade family. You'll never open a glass jar of Italian bell peppers and see peels and seeds because they're gone. And the most striking thing is the Southwest American Indians always peel and de-seed their peppers before they eat them. The hatch chili roast will be happening in another month. And what do? They roast their chilies, peel the scarred off part, de-seed them, and then they eat them or they make them into chili powder.
Right.
And, you can prove this in your grocery store. Buy a can of green chilies, chopped green chilies, open it up. You won't see any peels and seeds because they're gone.
So tomatoes and
peppers,
and
eggplant, potatoes. And potatoes,
if you peel them and seed these things,
you're safer, correct. But you can pressure cook them and they're fine.
And they're okay.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense to me.
Got it.
Now, there's two American beans that everyone should stay away from. Peanuts are not a nut, they're a bean.
So good, though.
94% of human beings carry a preformed antibody against the peanut lectin. We can take rhesus monkeys, our cousins, give them
All right, I'm gonna stop it here because I feel like I'm stealing this dude's interview at this point. I'm gonna link this down below, largely because I've played 25 minutes of it. I'm actually probably gonna listen to the rest of this and might even get this dude's book. But, what do you eat? I don't like sweet potatoes at all, and technically. Rice is a grain. I don't know. Leave comments down below. Like, what do you think of this whole thing? Think it's quackery, or do you think it's legit? I don't know. I do know that when I have potatoes fairly often, I have issues. Same with rice. I mean, what do you eat? Anyway, that's today's video. Hopefully you liked it. Give it a like, subscribe. Leave comments down below. What do you think of this whole thing? And I will talk to you next time.